everyone, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 3 of History's Greatest Idiots, the show where we look back through all of human history and give you examples of people screwing up and dropping the ball so that you can learn from their mistakes and never repeat them again. But who are we kidding? We're humans. And, mistakes are kind of our thing. Whether we want to acknowledge them or not, it happens. So joining me as ever is my amazing co-host, Derek. Derek, how are you doing?
I'm good. I was making mistakes earlier today.
Were you? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we talked
Yes,
about
I
this
was.
beforehand. So Derek had gallbladder surgery. That's right. You had it removed.
Yes. And it was a good time. I don't remember a thing. And I'm recovering really well. So well that I forgot that I just had surgery like 9 days ago and an organ removed. So I was texting on my phone, and I have this habit of throwing a pillow like right here in my breastal area and laying on my bed and kicking my feet up like a little schoolgirl and texting away.
It's comfy. That's why
Yeah.
they do that. It's nice and comfy. I'm an old man. I appreciate that kind of comfort now. So
When
yeah.
you dive onto your bed with a pillow lodged into your breast right where an incision was, though, it's like Tyson punched you and it all.
Yeah. Can you imagine if you did that with a British pillow? Like ours are filled with practically bricks,
Yeah,
and we do not have soft mattresses here. Fucking hard as
I
rocks,
have
man.
a firm mattress, but I had a big
Oh.
poofy down pillow, so I wasn't using one of the hard ones. That was good.
Oh shit.
That would have
man.
sucked real bad. But I don't even think I went all the way down. Like I cartooned my way back up, and Sandra just looked at me like, "What in the hell did you just do?"
I actually, now that you say that, it reminds me of a similar situation many years ago when before we got married, when I was dating my wife. We both lived just above London, in a really beautiful city called St Albans, and we just ordered Japanese food. I had this like whole platter of delicious Japanese food laid out in front of us. You had gyoza, katsu curry, edamame beans, like all of the deliciousness and stuff like that. And she was like having to choose between like going upstairs for a pee or having the food now, which she was like, so she ran upstairs and then stupidly she ran back downstairs again. And on the last step, she went flying and passed out from the pain, and I had to like pinch her cheek to get her to come round again. And then we ended up in the emergency room. But before we went, she was like, "Can I eat some of the food before we go? I'm so hungry." And I was like, "Yeah, we can have some of the Japanese food, and then we'll go to the emergency room." But yeah, I know what you mean. Like in those moments when you just aren't thinking, and then afterwards you're like, "What the fuck? Why do I do these things?" Yeah,
I'm a fan of your wife. I would have wanted some of the food too, for sure.
it was so good. It's so good. Japanese food is so good, and I mean beyond sushi, like they have some really tasty shit. So yeah, I'm really glad you're recovering. How are you finding strength wise you are right now?
It's coming back really quick. I think I tend to I overdo it a lot. I'm getting back out and doing my walking, but I'm a little more gassed than normal. But
Yeah,
I got to go back to my day job Monday, and so we'll see how I am mentally.
Take
I'm
your time,
missing my
man.
brain. I think.
Yeah,
No, gallbladder. That's what they took out.
you are on painkillers, so it's totally okay if you're not like as sharp as you might normally be.
I actually didn't have to do painkillers like after the first day until the pillow incident today, because I'm an idiot and that hurt bad.
Well, as long as you're not bleeding from the incision, I think you're probably okay. It's just like everything's a bit tender around there, so
it was like kicking a bruise.
It's kind of like when you get the wind knocked out of you and also you've got pain afterwards. Like as long as that's it and it's not a continuous pain. Speaking of pain, so I want to cover this as well because a lot of people are aware that I've not had the greatest time recently. I had to take a week off work. I've been through a lot in the last few months, and last week, well, a week and a half ago now, I had a moment at work where I had a cardiac incident, and I'm not going to downplay the severity of it for anyone who's listening. I am healing, but it was pretty bad. And I have taken a long time off work, and I am recovering, and I hadn't realized how weak I was until myself and my wife went on some gentle walks in the countryside, which kicked the shit out of me. Like, after you've had, because I'm used to Crohn's disease tired, which is like, oh, you're tired, you're unwell, just have a lie down, have a nap, maybe have something to eat or drink, and then like in an hour or two you'll have a bit more energy. Whereas this, I haven't had energy for a week. And whenever I've tried to do anything, I've been like out of breath. My heart's been messed up. It's been kind of scary because I'm like 42. So that's just scary.
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's never good.
That's not good. And I had heart surgery already in my life when I was much younger because I had a heart condition. And I don't want to get to a point in my life with stress where that condition comes back, because it's the same condition actually Tony Blair ended up getting, only his was because he was part of some horrific decisions which led to millions of deaths. So
that'd be some stress there.
That's some stress right there. So I don't want to get to a point where my heart condition that was repaired using a very elaborate and very intense surgery comes back. But yeah, I definitely I'm looking forward to having a nice, restful, relaxing few weeks here. But so we've both been in the wars a little bit, but actually, to introduce a little brevity, Derek, why don't you tell us about this week's idiot, please?
Well, outside of my surgery and stuff, I've been losing a lot of weight, and I've kind of had this running joke with some of my folks back here that when I get under 200 pounds, I'm going to get a skateboard and start skating again like I did back in my younger days.
Nice.
And now I'm under 200 pounds, and I haven't gotten like a skateboard yet, but I'm thinking about it. And that got me thinking, hey, I wonder if there's any skateboard idiots out there, because like I was a skateboard idiot when I was a kid, like a skater punk weirdo.
Nice.
And yes, totally there was.
There's a bunch.
This one, it's kind of different, I guess. Okay. Because like in keeping in the positive path that we're on this season, this guy he did fall off the rails, but then he also turned it around. So there's a lesson here and a story of redemption.
Good. We like those. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's extra weird because there's like some irony in his nickname and his story of redemption.
Okay. I like that.
And I'm being as non-religious as I am. Big props for this guy going super religious.
Yes.
So
yeah, we like a redemption arc. PT in the chat. We like a redemption arc. Yes.
All right. Absolutely. So I want to share with you the story of American pro skateboarder turned prison inmate turned associate pastor, and once again pro skateboarder with probably the most accidentally fitting nickname of all time, Christian Christ Hosoi.
Oh wow. Okay.
So Christian was born October 5th, 1967, somewhere in California. I wasn't able to find out exactly where. His dad's name, Ivan Pops Hosoi. His mom, Bonnie Pumana Mitchell.
Okay.
In 1970, his parents separated, and Christian spent his formative years with his dad in Los Angeles, in and around that area, and sometimes going back to his father's home state of Hawaii.
Oh, cool. Okay.
From a super young age, he was like an adventurous kid, and Pops wasn't one of those kind of parents that would stand in the way of those adventures, and he would kind of encourage his spirited behavior.
Yeah, I mean, you're in California, so the attitude is kind of laid back compared to other places already. So makes sense.
Super laid back. Super laid back. California in the 70s, man.
Oh yeah, Jesus.
So, Christian's really well coordinated from a young age, and he's almost never afraid. He's like a thrill seeker, climbing trees all the time at school, getting in trouble, and like his parents or his teachers would call his dad. And according to this one article I was reading in Sports Illustrated, the teachers would call Pops, and he'd already have been smoking his first joint for the day. So he'd laugh it off and say, "Lady, look, if the kid ain't scared, I ain't scared. And if he ain't in any kind of trouble, let's just leave it be, you know?"
It sounds like Anthony Kiedis' dad, to be honest with you.
Pretty
Although
much.
that went a bit differently. That was a bit weirder, but sure.
I don't know that whole story. Maybe you could do that one.
I'll just think about reasons why, like pinky fingers, right? Just why would one fingernail on a pinky finger be longer than the other one?
Oh,
that was his dad.
Yeah. Oh, he liked the bumps.
Yeah, he did. Sadly. Anyway, this carry on, but this is cool. Like this guy's like, let my kid adventure, let him learn the world. I approve of that.
Right. Well, and sometimes though the teachers would get so freaked out that they would like insist that he come get him. So, Pops would take off and go pick him up. Well, anyway, I like totally lost my spot.
Okay.
Painkillers are whooping my ass. Sorry, guys. Christian took to skateboarding at a super young age as well. According to one article, as young as 7.
Wow.
Another, it was 8. Doesn't really matter. Still super young. Yeah. In 1979, when he was 12 years old, his dad took a job managing a skate park, in part because he was super impressed with his son's own unique abilities to stay on a skateboard at the young age of like 7.
That's so cool.
So he wanted to encourage it.
Amazing.
And Christian ended up dropping out of school to help his dad manage the skate park and pursue skateboarding, obviously.
It's the 70s. Education doesn't matter. You're going to be okay. It's the 70s. Anytime before like 1995, you could probably have dropped out of school with no qualifications and you'd still be all right. Whereas like from 1995 onwards, you're kind of fucked, basically.
Yeah. I mean, unless you want to like be a congressperson.
True.
Anyway, so Christian drops out of high school because he's skateboarding, helping his dad run the skate park. But also he's skateboarding with like big names. He's hanging out with Shogo Kubo, Tony Alva, Jay Adams, Stacy Peralta.
Wow.
Just huge names. Those guys are hanging out at the skate park. This little dude's running around skating with them. And he was something special, like right from the start. And
awesome.
Even Stacy Peralta recalls in this one interview saying, Christian was this teeny little kid who just had it. He had this impeccable form. Even when he was 10 years old, it was just beautiful to watch. It was weird to see a kid at that age with an understanding of how to move his body through space.
Yeah, and this is a weird thing. So just randomly off topic here, people talk about the 5 senses. Has someone got a 6th sense? Actually, you've got multiple fucking senses. Like the ability to detect heat without putting your hand on it. That's like a whole sense. There's a thing called proprioception. So if you close your eyes and like move your fucking limbs around and jump around, like where your limbs are without like having to look at them, that's proprioception. That's a totally different sense. So you've got like 20 senses that just aren't covered under the basic sight, sound, smell, taste, all of that shit, and a bunch of them are just like kind of peripheral. So I think that, and actually it's something that should be encouraged in kids. And I'm not talking about like get your kids active and stuff, but like getting kids to like physically express themselves in an active way means that they actually become more coordinated. It stimulates their brains. They think more about placements and they become less clumsy. They become more poised, better balance, stuff like that. Like I did swimming from like the youngest age, and I kind of stopped after I left high school. But as a result of that, I've got much better balance. My lung capacity is better than it should be and stuff. So honestly, like all of these little things you can encourage your kids to do physically, they learn it quickly when they're young, but also it stands them in such a good stead for the rest of their lives.
Oh yeah. Well, think about just because you did that, maybe that's one of the reasons that you're, hanging in there with the difficulties.
With all of the shit that's going on. Yeah. That's exactly how I feel. But yeah, no, definitely. And I'm really impressed that this 10-year-old kid is obviously showing cool form. But I love that he's hanging around with the right people who are influencing him to do things in a specific way that are going to make him better. That's great.
Absolutely. And let's see, right around this time, he's 12 years old. The first photo of Christian gets published in Skateboarder in 1980, which shows him blasting this front side aerial out of a pool with his arms kind of extended up and back in like a ballerina mid-leap pose type of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And he's just kind of staring at the camera impassively with his lips clenched. And there's just something about that photo that's like an eerie lighting. But it's, I don't know, it's like mesmerizing,
Yeah.
and it's super memorable. It's so memorable that it got him a sponsor, like almost
Nice.
immediately after that.
Great.
In 19, well, let's see, in 1979, he was already sponsored by Powell Peralta because of Stacy Peralta,
Sure.
but they didn't want him to turn pro, so he went to Dogtown Skateboards, which, you know,
Okay.
Dogtown Z-Boys with Jay Adams and Tony Alva,
Yeah.
obviously hanging out with all the right people, like you said. He then went to Sim Skateboards and then turned pro at 14.
Wow. Shit, man.
So 79 to 80, skateboarding's kind of changing.
Mm.
They're going from surfing the pool walls and riding the half pipes like waves, making it like street surfing, like the Dogtown and Z-Boys.
Yeah.
In the 80s, Christian becomes like this anointed second coming of skateboarding because he starts transforming it into this like aerial spectacle.
Right. With stunts and shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's joined by like people like Steve Caballero and Lance Mountain. What's that one guy's name? Tony Hawk.
Tony Hawk. Yeah. The big guy. Yeah.
And like, you know, Tony Hawk's known for his technical abilities, like doing difficult tricks and like 900s and shit.
Yeah.
Hosoi was more known for his graceful style and his unique flair.
Okay.
So most people would know Christian Hosoi is credited as the inventor of the Christ Air, which is the like big aerial outstretched. And then he's also credited with creating the Rocket Air.
Okay.
And he's known for some of the most huge aerials. So at one point, he was the world record holder for aerial height on a skateboard.
Amazing.
So as a pro skateboarder, he started earning these major endorsements from companies like Converse and Swatch.
Perfect.
And then 1984, he founded Hosoi Skates, which turned out to be a popular skateboard for a little while.
Okay.
And then he really started to take off in his major competition wins in 1985, which lasted all the way through 1988.
Okay.
And obviously he's going to develop a rivalry with Tony Hawk because they're two of the best in vertical skateboarding.
Yeah, and they're kind of same age, more or less, you know, young guys trying to compete for the same thing. Yeah, you're going to have like competitiveness for sure.
In the 1980s, they became the top names. And if Christian hadn't squandered his gifts, we'd probably still be watching him the same way we're watching Tony Hawk today.
Shit, wow.
And that video game that everybody plays on PlayStation might actually be Christian Hosoi's Underground and not Tony Hawk's Underground.
Yeah.
But by the 90s, the world of skateboarding was kind of changing, and Christian wasn't changing with it at all. The attention moved more towards street skating and like the street courses, technical tricks, and a lot of the vert attention was on technical tricks and not huge air.
Yeah.
And Tony adapted. Christian didn't. Christian started winning less often and started to make some bad business decisions, got involved with skateboard companies that were failing, and he started facing bankruptcy.
Oh, that's not good.
At the same time, the party life that he had been living, that you generally do when you get famous fast and young and have a good life, good money, and you're an outlaw skateboarder, he starts losing his battle with drugs at this time, and the addiction is kicking his ass. In 1995, he got arrested for 2 minor offenses, didn't show up for court, had a warrant issued for his arrest. And his idea to avoid arrest was to just stop attending competitions and demos. And just
that's going to make his problems worse.
Yeah,
really.
Well, he also declined an invitation to the first X Games, or back then it was the Extreme Games.
Right, yeah.
So it would have been marketed as this renewed rivalry between Hawk and Hosoi, and may have brought back his career.
Yeah.
And he was worried about an arrest for minor drug offenses, and was like, "Nah."
I can kind of see it. If they're advertising your presence and you've got a warrant out, then that's like, it's a bit of a recipe for disaster there. So yeah.
But take the renewed career and like, it's a minor drug offense. What are you going to do? Like some community service?
Yeah.
Like,
pick up trash. You can actually, you could generally like turn that into, I guess we're talking early days now, because like the 90s was kind of a different time, but you couldn't have taken a situation like that at the time and made it into like an opportunity to publicize certain things and turn it into a positive. It wasn't always easy to do that in the 90s, but there are ways of doing it.
I think it would have been perfect, especially with the rivalry between Tony Hawk and him being the bad boy of skating, and Tony Hawk being Tony Hawk.
Clean cut. Yeah, that's like, and also like he's more old school. He came up with the young guys, so you've got that like kind of old school versus new school mentality thing going on. So, yeah, you're right. There's an opportunity there that was kind of missed.
Missed it. Went into hiding instead a little bit, and then in January 2000, the law finally caught up with him in Honolulu at the airport, but it wasn't for those minor offenses. He was apprehended while attempting to transport nearly 1.5 pounds or 0.68 kilograms of crystal methamphetamine from Los Angeles to Honolulu.
That's a lot.
Yeah, he was charged with trafficking with the intent to distribute.
That's a big sentence. And I mean, I know it's a non-violent drug offense, but he's looking at what, 25 to life for that shit?
He was sentenced to 10 years for that. He was tried, convicted, or pled guilty, and he served 4 of those years. He was released from the San Bernardino Central Detention Center in June of 2004.
Right, yeah.
While he was in prison, he married his girlfriend, who was a former nightclub dancer named Jennifer Lee, and it was with her support and guidance, along with the help of her uncle, Pastor Christopher Swaim, Christian became a born-again Christian.
Helpful. Really, with that
name. He also earned his high school diploma.
Great.
The one that he just didn't get to go skateboard. So he's turning things around there. In 2006, he was the subject of a documentary, The Rising Sun, that detailed his initial success and then his drug addiction and conversion to Christianity. And following that, he joined up with a couple of other skater pastors and created The Uprising, which is a skate-based ministry that in 2008 was documented on a Christian youth television network and made into a reality television show.
Great. I love that.
I guess the first season was 8 episodes and followed the ministry around California and England.
Oh, that's news to me, but wow.
I hadn't heard of it, but good for him.
No,
today, Christian is very open and vocal on Instagram and other places about his newfound faith. And he has even become an associate pastor and has resumed his skateboarding career, taking first at the 2009 X Games 15 Skateboard Park Legends contest.
Nice.
And so there you go. That's Christian Hosoi. Christian Christ Hosoi.
That's amazing. That's a really cool story. Really enjoyed that. Deemster, Dilly Bob, one of our patrons. Hey, thank you for joining us. I forgot to shout out our patrons. Damn it. So Jesse,
do all that.
Bob, Kimberly, and and the other person. I'm so sorry. So I've completely, like, we were talking about health stuff, and I got completely sidetracked with all of that. Let me just go through who our audience is. So Dilly Bob, Andrew Zavara, Kimberly Johnson, and Jesse Christ, thank you for supporting us on Patreon. And if any of you guys want to support us on Patreon, follow the thing at the bottom of the screen, or if you're listening after the fact, go to patreon.com/history's greatest idiots, where you will get behind the scenes stuff like scripts and pictures and footage, but also special one-off episodes that nobody else gets except the patrons. So go there and you also get a free gift. So sling us some cash, make this a real deal thing for us and make us full time. And also, if you want to go to our social medias, go to Instagram is at History's Greatest Idiots, and on Twitter at Greatest Idiots. If you want to follow, X. I've got to stop calling it Twitter. So sorry to interrupt your flow there, but that's an amazing story. And again, PT over in the comments said we love a redemption arc. That's a really solid redemption arc. That's like a full circle turnaround.
Yeah,
we love that. So,
I enjoyed researching it and watching skateboarding and
nice.
Yes, yeah, and it's cool. And even though, like, I don't know, I'm generally non or even leaning towards an anti organized religion type person.
Same, yeah.
I appreciate anybody that finds their way and any way towards comfort and goodness.
Yeah, and like peace.
Yeah,
because a lot of people with addictions just want a quiet life. They just want peace in their world. And actually, the fact that he's found that now, but also he's doing the thing that he loved, while also doing something that he's passionate about, is really, really cool. So well done. What was his name again? Sorry.
Christian Hosoi.
Christian Hosoi. Amazing story. So I can't really score this guy high at all. It's another low scoring one, but we don't mind the low scoring ones because we've given high scoring ones a long time. So I'm going to go with the crystal meth trafficking thing's pretty bad, but
and giving up the opportunity to redo his career over a small minor offense instead.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 15. I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm good
15,
with
that. And I feel like as time goes by, and he's like one of these people that's grown into, this made me the person I am today. Then he would probably drop down to like a 5. Like the older he gets, the more helpful he gets. The lower his score will be. But Christian Hosoi, really cool story, and I'm surprised that hasn't become because they did the film with what was it with what's his name, Heath Ledger, Kings of
Lords,
Dogtown?
Dogtown, Z-Boy, Lords of Dogtown.
That one.
That was with Jay Adams, Tony Alva, all the people, all the dudes he was skating with. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so they put that into a film, but actually, Christian Hosoi's life is interesting enough to be rife for like a really cool Netflix biopic. It doesn't have to be. You can do that in 90 minutes. You could knock that out relatively easily. So, I mean, if they're doing one about Leonard Bernstein, and that's kind of quite boring in places, then. I'd watch Christian Hosoi's life story. That's a really cool one.
Hell yeah.
And one person I don't think is likely to get a biopic made because it's just like you would know what was going to happen. You'd be the only person that wouldn't know what was going to happen is the subject of the biopic. I'm going to go on to my guy now, and I suspect he's scoring higher than 15. So let's talk about Franz Reichelt, the Flying Tailor. So I kind of publicized it. I've kind of spoiled this slightly a little bit in advance. I said that he was the original Batman.
Okay.
And there's an image of him on the thumbnail for this video. So if you and podcast as well. So if you check that out, you'll see why. Because his pose while he's wearing his Reichelt suit is very much like Batman. And I was immediately like, given what he's famous for, there's definitely a Batman element to this. But let me tell you the story of Franz Reichelt, the Flying Tailor. Franz Karl Reichelt was born on the 16th of October, 1878, in Wegstadt, Kingdom of Bohemia, in Austria-Hungary today, which is now Steti of the Czech Republic. So after the breakup of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Czech Republic, well, it was initially Czechoslovakia, and then it became the Czech Republic. So that's where it is now. And he was born to Joseph Reichelt and Katarina Reichelt nee Gauger. So very much like ethnic Czech people within a much larger empire. And that's the Austro-Hungarian Empire was already starting to fragment at this point in time. And this is like still 30 years, well, 25 years before the First World War, when everything was really starting to fragment. So he's kind of in a difficult spot, really. Little is known about his early life, but in 1898, so he would have been 20 years old, Franz moved to Paris, France. And Paris, at the turn of the century, that is the place to be. Like, this is like...
It's popping.
Yeah, there's like a whole bunch of cool artists around there. There's a bunch of really amazing movements happening. Everyone's got gonorrhea. It's just the place to be. He obtained French nationality in 1909, so he had to live there for 11 years, adopting the first name Francois, the French equivalent of the Germanic Franz. So he became Francois Reichelt. Just throwing this out there for people who are looking to move to gain citizenship in, say, France. You have to live there in the country for a minimum of 5 years before you apply for citizenship. And you have to take a test, and they also have to assess whether you're like a decent person, whether the French want you or not. But actually, like most European countries, if you live there for 5 years continuously, you can apply for citizenship, and you can become a dual citizen. Some places, like Gibraltar, you could become a citizen in 3 years. So, but that's a fucking rock in the fucking Mediterranean. So maybe go somewhere a bit bigger. Anyway, so if you want to become French and maybe have the right to live there and enjoy all of the wonderful stuff that the French people do, like socialized medicine and support for your family, live there for 5 years. And just throwing that out there.
Do you have to change? You have to change your name to be French sounding, though.
No,
but he just did.
No, you do not. Sure. He just did it to blend in, because obviously, like, it's the turn of the century, Austro-Hungarian. There's like empires and tensions and stuff. Like, he's just trying to fit in. It's the same way. Isn't it Czechia now? Yes, it is Czechia now, Pete. Good point. Yeah, it was the Czech Republic. I'm showing my age here, but it is Czechia now. So yeah. He's trying to blend in. I think it's kind of the same way a lot of Germanic people changed their name when they came over to America after the war, or like Jewish people changed their names to maybe like get more business in certain parts of the world. And it's sad that it happens, but it does happen, unfortunately. Anyway, one of his sisters may also have come to France and been married to a jeweler there, but newspaper reports differed on the details of his family life, with most reporting that his sisters stayed in Vienna, which is also a cool place to stay. Vienna. You might be wondering why newspapers were interested in this guy. Well, we'll get to that in a bit, but
okay.
He starts out really good. Reichelt himself was unmarried. He took an apartment on the 3rd floor at 8 Rue Galon, near the Avenue de l'Opéra. What do you think happens on that road?
Operas?
Operas, yes. And he decides, and actually this is a really good district for him as well, because operas are drawing a lot of people. People will travel, at this point in time, they'll travel around the world to see like famous operas and opera houses and stuff. So they'll go from country to country to like, oh, I'm going to go to the Parisian opera or the, wherever, like the Viennese opera and what have you. And from 1907, he opened what was to become a successful dressmaking business, catering mostly to Austrians on trips to Paris, usually to go to the opera. So he's really close to the opera, and it's like an event, like if somebody goes on like, I'm trying to think of an equivalent now, but basically it's like a social event. So everyone's going to the opera, everyone's going to be seen by like all of the other people that are going to the opera. They're all moving in certain circles, and they need to look good for these like social events. So he's making dresses for them, and he's really close to the opera. So it's super convenient for the people who are visiting from out of town. They might get a hotel nearby. He can be on there. He can do a fitting in the hotel. You can go back to his place, make the dress, come back. Super convenient. Great business idea.
He's like the dress designer for the Met Gala, but in Paris at the time.
Exactly, yeah. And he's catering. He's done a really smart thing and super specialist and niche, which like is my thing. Like it's certainly something I've been involved with in the last like 5 years, is that he's cornering a really specific market. Like it will be Austrian people visiting Paris, because they'll have like the Viennese fashion very different from Parisian fashion. So like it'll be more ornate and less like kind of egalitarian. So he's like making it a bit more elaborate. And also it's the opera, so you can have a bit more flourish in there, you know, a bit more flair. So really smart decision, and his business takes off. He does really, really well with it. From 1910, it wasn't enough though. Like he's got this super successful business. He would have been one of the foremost dressmakers in all of Paris for a very specific market, but it wasn't enough. He had this like desire to be an inventor. Yeah. The problem with the desire of being an inventor around the early part of the 20th century is that it's mostly about showmanship. And if you look at someone like Edison, who is one of the greatest thieves of all time, he's mostly about the show. And there's elements of P.T. Barnum in these inventors where they're like, they realize that people, you know, are still somewhat uneducated. They're not going to be able to understand the science, and they're not going to appreciate the knock-on effects that their inventions have. So they have to sell this shit to a wider audience. And this guy is very much not science, but very much a showman. So he begins to develop a parachute suit.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So not just like a parachute. Think about any parachute. You pull a cord, it pops out the back, flies up, you slowly glide to the ground and maybe break your ankle. You know, like the basic parachute. He's decided that it has to be a suit because he's a fucking tailor. So of course it has to be a suit.
Is he making a flying squirrel suit?
Almost.
Oh
yeah. If you look up, I should have got pictures. I didn't. I think I downloaded one for the thumbnail. But again, if you look at Franz Reichelt, the first thing that will come up is his fucking flying squirrel Batman costume. And it's like, I have to describe it to you now. A suit that was much more bulky than the one normally worn by an aviator, but with the addition of a few rods, a silk canopy, and a small amount of rubber that allowed it to fold out to become what Reichelt hoped would be a practical and efficient parachute. So it's made of silk and rubber. Basically sounds like he's made a bondage outfit.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's like made something that, and also like, I understand the need for silk. Silk is super delicate. I don't know the tensile strength of silk. I don't think it's very high. So he probably would have been better going for cotton, I think.
I mean, well, I'm trying to. There it is.
The Reichelt parachute. There's so much Batman shit going on there. Like, and sorry to the people who are listening on podcasts after the fact, but look at that. Would you jump out of? And also, we'll get to it in a minute. This isn't like a super high level parachute. This is for low level evacuations. Would you jump out of anything wearing that?
No. It's like strapped to him with like seatbelts.
There's a lot of like additional shit there, and he's got like stuff around his ankles as well, like knee pads. He's got like kick pads on his legs. What the fuck, man? Definitely a Batman thing.
Little booties.
Yeah, little booties on the bottom there. He's got gloves. He's got bingo wings flapping out of his arms. Like, oh my god, like that is crazy.
This can't go well.
Well. We'll get to it now. The dawn of the aviation age brought inevitable accidents coupled with a growing interest in safety measures, most notably in the development of an effective parachute. Early parachute successes, such as those of Louis Sebastian Lenormand and Jean-Pierre Blanchard, had successfully used fixed canopy parachutes already open before the jump began. So it's already like fucking rigid. You're not going anywhere with that. And André Jacques Garnerin had invented a frameless parachute suitable for use from high altitude, so over like 1,000 feet, basically. But by 1910, there was still no parachute suitable to use in a jump from a plane or at low altitude, which is the majority of the time you need that shit. Like, it's great that you can jump out at high altitude and come to a nice gentle landing, but in an emergency situation, that's not going to cut it. Like, you're not going to have time to like put stirrup A into B and like, you know, like your plane's on fire. Like, that ain't working.
Hey, these damn IKEA parachutes are so hard to put together. There goes my instructions.
What's a slingle? Where am I supposed to? They've forgotten the screw. Oh, well, we're in the ground now. Early base jumpers had to make do with like throwing themselves off ladders and like landing in sand for the briefest of kicks because there's nothing to like help them here. They're just like kids in a playground. Anyway, Reichelt seems to have become more interested in parachute design after hearing some of the stories of fatal accidents among the early aeronauts and aviators, which is basically like 80% of all aviators at this point are dying because like the planes are shit. They're made of like paper and flammable liquids, and they're just like they're flying for like a few miles, a few hundred feet in the air, and then they're just fucking bursting into flames and dying. Pete with a good point here. You're constructing your parachute and you've left the Allen key behind. That would be so fucking funny, the angle thing. So basically he's spurned on by all of these tragic accidents. It's unclear if he managed to make his prototype work, but it actually is that he didn't make it work. According to the caretaker of Reichelt's building, as quoted by Le Petit Parisien, great name for a newspaper, the little Parisian, he had some success early in the process with mannequins fitted with silk wings thrown from the building's 5th story. However, no other testimony can be found corroborating her assessment. So even if it's true, it's a mannequin. It's not really going to cut it, is it?
Still, can you imagine just being the poor bastard walking on the street that day?
This fucking mannequin floats past you. What is happening up there? Most newspapers quoting frequent observers of his experiments instead affirm that he never managed to achieve a functioning prototype for any iteration of his parachute's designs. This seems much more believable, the idea of multiple people walking past his apartment, watching him throwing random junk out of his fucking window covered in silk and rubber. It's a much more believable story. Like picking at the mannequins, like, why does this one have a ball gag in its mouth? Like, oh, there's aerodynamicism. Well, why does this one have a testicle weight? Oh, that's ballast. Right. Yeah.
Gotta have it, even it out with the ball.
You got to make sure it evens out. So I've attached weights to its bollocks. Hello, Detnes. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name. Hello and welcome to the stream. So going back to his original design, his original parachute design used 6 square meters, 65 square feet of material and weighed 70 kilograms or 150 pounds.
That's a person.
That's another fucking person on your back. No wonder this didn't work.
That's silk?
Silk and rubber and probably testicle weights and whips and stuff. But like, no wonder it's not working. Like, you've got all this apparatus and you're trying to use like lightweight materials, but it's still 150 pounds. Like, most people weighed that at this point in time. That's crazy heavy.
That's insane.
It's stupid. No wonder all these fucking dummies are falling to their doom.
Just throwing 300 pounds. How many people did he kill testing?
I know. He was like a menace, this guy. He was fucking terrifying. So he presented his design. He's presented his designs to the leading aeronautic organization, La Ligue Aérienne, at the Aero Club de France, hoping that they would test it. But they rejected his designs on the grounds that the construction of the canopy was too weak and attempted to dissuade him from spending any further time developing this parachute. They're like, listen, dude, you are not that guy. This isn't going to work.
Yeah. They used the excuse that the thing was too weak. They were really like, dude, our planes can't lift 300 pounds. Are you crazy?
Exactly. They're fucking made of paper. What is wrong with you? And like, listen, look, you're going to die. But like, it's like Norman Osborn in the fucking first Spider-Man film. Like, oh, my goblin suit will work. The military will love it. Like, no, Norman, you look like a fucking flying green dildo. You're going to die in this thing. No, he wouldn't hear of it. Reichelt nevertheless persevered and conducted experiments, dropping dummies from the courtyard of his building at Rue Gaillon. So he's driving away his business at this point. Like, who wants to buy a fucking fancy dress from this guy? He's throwing dummies out that are covered in bondage gear. Like, Jesus, man. None of his tests proved successful, just smashing dummies everywhere. In 1911, A Colonel Lalande wrote to the Aero Club de France, offering a prize of 10,000 francs for a safety parachute for aviators, double the prize he'd offered the year before. I think 10,000 francs is like, I mean, the franc was always weak. Like you could get like £10 will get you like 1,000 francs. It's one of those like kind of trash like currencies, but like at this point in time, 10,000 francs, that's like a life-changing amount of money. That's like you can live comfortably for the rest of your life. The competition was open for 3 years and stipulated that the parachute must weigh no more than 25 kilograms. So he's way off on this point.
Okay.
He's like,
he's gonna ditch the rubber.
Yeah, ditch all of the kinky shit and just make something that works, man. Reichelt refined his design, reducing the weight while increasing the surface area of the material until it reached 12 square meters or 130 square foot. That's a fucking huge parachute. But his tests were still unsuccessful, and his dummies invariably fell heavily to earth. Any sane person would give up at this point, but not old Frankie over here. This guy is in it for the long run, come hell or high water, and boy, is it about to get dark. Le Suite Eclair reported in 1911 that Reichelt had personally jumped from a height of 8 to 10 meters, that's 26 to 30 feet, at Joinville. The attempt failed, but a pile of straw helped him escape injury. Or when they say a pile of straw, I'm picturing like 30 feet of straw and a guy just like 1 foot above it, just like jumping off and just plummeting down like to the bottom of it, because like it would have, he's still wearing like extra kilos on his back, and he's a full grown man. So yeah.
Twist an ankle? Like
no injuries because he had the straw. He had like half a county's worth of straw to break his fall.
You ever jumped into straw though? He would have had some injuries, man. He'd have had
it poking your fucking ass and your leg and shit like that. That hurts. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, Le Matin reported an attempt at Nogent from a height of 8 meters, 26 feet, that resulted in a broken leg. Didn't stop him. He just carried on. He's like, it's only a broken leg. I'll be fine in a few months. Le Petit Journal suggested that Reichelt also made at least 2 apparently inconclusive tests with dummies from the first deck of the Eiffel Tower during 1911, but an interview with one of his friends in La Presse made it clear that he had been unsuccessfully applying for permission to conduct a test from the tower for over a year before he finally received the authorization for the final jump. Here it comes. Yeah.
So he thought, this shit doesn't work from 20 feet. What we need to do is go higher.
That's exactly what he said. That's exactly what he said. I can't believe it. And we said it in jest. He thought that's what was the problem. Is I don't have enough height. That's the issue here. There is no science in this experiment at this point, but he's doing it anyway. There had been other tests from the tower during 1910 and 1911, though. Gaston Hervier, who employed a dummy aircraft and mannequins in his experiment, was attempting to perfect a parachute design to ensure the safe landing of a pilot. Sorry, not pirate. That would be
cool though.
Yeah, with all or part of a damaged aircraft. Reichelt attributed the previous failures of his design, at least in part, to the short drop distance over which he'd been conducting his tests. Literally what you just said, Derek. So he was keen to receive permission to experiment from the tower. It's not my designs that are fundamentally flawed, I swear. So Reichelt announced to the press in early February 1912 that he had finally received permission and would shortly conduct an experiment from the Eiffel Tower to prove the value of his invention. On Sunday, the 4th of February at 7 a.m., Reichelt arrived at the tower. That's too fucking early to do anything. By car, he arrived at the tower by 2. Sorry, go on.
Did he have breakfast first?
I mean, you would hope so, but I guess like he's trying to lighten the load, so maybe he didn't have breakfast. But 7 a.m.
He didn't eat that early.
No, and like I guess he's thinking the winds aren't going to be quite as strong at 7 a.m. He was wrong. Yeah. Reichelt arrived at the tower by car with 2 friends. He was already wearing the parachute suit. I feel like you should probably have not worn it in the car, and then stepped out into the cold environment, like steps out like fucking sideways on with all the kinky shit on him. The news footage of his jump shows him modeling his invention in its folded form, which Legaulos described as only a little more voluminous than ordinary clothing. I mean, yeah, we've seen the picture. It's not that different from ordinary clothes, especially at the time. So
yeah,
better like holding his jacket up at the back and jumping off. To be honest.
Yes, probably.
And just FYI, there is actual footage of this insanity available online. Be warned, it's really grim. So
I just don't understand. Okay.
It gets really bad. It gets really, really bad because, like, we already know what's going to happen, right? But he had ample opportunity to stop. The suit did not restrict the wearer's movements when the parachute was packed. And Le Petit Parisien described the method of deploying the parachute as simple as extending your arms out to form a cross with the body. Like, help me, I'm fucking falling to my death.
God. Oh,
yeah.
But what?
Well,
was he out of dummies?
Was
he was out of mannequins?
This is the thing, right? You know, we've talked about people in the alt-right and Alex Jones and stuff who just start to believe their own bullshit. I think it's that, because you're about to see, he's like, I will prove all of you wrong. And by all, he literally means the dozens of people that are trying to stop him from doing this on the day and before the day. Yeah, so once extended, the outfit resembled a sort of cloak fitted with a vast hood of silk. So Batman. According to Le Temps, L'Action Française reported that Reichelt stated the surface area of the final design to be 30 square meters or 320 square feet, which is bullshit. Like, we saw the picture. There's no way there's that much stuff there. And the canopy height of 5 meters, while Le Figaro judged the surface area have reached 32 square meters or 340 square feet.
Maybe it's a grower.
Yeah, it's a grower, not a shower. No wonder he was so voluminous. Probably still weighed a shitload, though. Lacroix claimed that the suit may have weighed as little as 9 kilograms or 20 pounds, which is pretty close. I think possibly even less than like modern day parachutes at this point. But what has he sacrificed to get it down to that weight? You know, like any sort of aerodynamic stuff. Yeah.
The stuff that holds it together.
Yeah, the stuff that breaks the actual fall. The weather was cold with temperatures below 0 degrees centigrade or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So probably should have waited until midday when the fucking sun was up. And there was a stiff breeze blowing across the Champ de Mars. So less than ideal conditions for a rapid deployment of delicate fabric when it's like freezing cold weather. Like, that shit will tear in those kind of conditions, you know?
Yeah, and he was wearing it in the car, getting all warmed up,
getting all sweaty and nervous, and then stepping out into the freezing cold. Yeah, not good. Some police officers were present to maintain order as the Paris police prefecture, say that 3 times fast, given Reichelt permission to proceed. That's 5 P's, for fuck's sake. Louis Lepin, who was the prefect of police, was ultimately responsible for the permission being granted, issued a statement making it clear that while the police routinely gave permission for experiments to be performed from the Eiffel Tower, it was understood in these cases that the dummies were to be used. And yeah, they had given permission in Reichelt's case only on the basis that he'd be conducting the experiment with dummy drops, and that under no circumstances would they have allowed him to proceed if they had known he would be making the jump himself. Lapin, whatever, that was funny, assured Lacroix that he never signed an order that allowed a live jump. However, from his arrival at the tower, Reichelt made it clear that he intended to jump himself.
Well, he's wearing it.
He's like, I mean, I'm not a dummy, so I'm jumping. Maybe. According to a later interview with one of the friends who accompanied him up the tower, this was a surprise to everyone, as Reichelt had concealed his intention until the last moment. He hadn't even told them in the car that he was jumping.
But he was wearing it.
And I was like, well, what's this going on here, mate? You look a little bit different today. Like, oh, no, this is a choice. Leave me alone. Like, I like giant hoods made of silk and rubber, and ignore the ball gag. That's just part of
His
the outfit.
friends are just as dumb as him.
It really are. But actually, once they realized, they were like, he's not gonna. It's a publicity stunt. He's like wearing it for the press so they can take pictures, so that they can the dummy will successfully do it, and they can see what it'll look like on a man. And that's probably how he sold it. But then he got there, as like, I'm fucking jumping, and they're like, oh god, no, we thought this might happen, but Jesus.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. His friends tried to persuade him to use dummies in the experiment, assuring him that he would have other opportunities to make the jump himself, which is true. Like, this is an initial test. The press will come back once you've whetted their appetite with some successful dummy tests. When this failed to make an impression on him, they pointed out the strength of the wind, and he should call off the tests on safety grounds, or at least delay it until the wind dropped. They were unable to shake his resolve. Seemingly undeterred by the failure of his previous tests, he told journalists from Le Petit Journal that he was totally convinced that his apparatus would work, and work well. No President Kennedy, air conditioning and a hard bulletproof roof are no alternative to being able to wave to your voters. Let's just leave the top down. Wow. When questioned as to whether he planned to take any additional precautions, such as using a safety rope. So even the press, like, maybe you want to use a rope, mate. Maybe you want to attach a rope to your back in case, like, you fucking plunge. He replied that he would not, since he intended to trust his life entirely to his parachute. I want to try the experiment myself, and without trickery, as I intend to prove the worth of my invention. Whew.
Okay.
Yeah. He's like, no, like, his mates are trying to dissuade him, the police are trying to dissuade him, the press are pointing out that maybe a rope just in case. Even God's like, listen, it's cold and fucking windy, do not jump now. And he's like, it's fine,
send some rain.
Yeah, give me some hail. Make it a challenge. Herbu, who was present to witness the demonstration, also attempted to dissuade Reichelt from making the jump. He was concerned that the parachute needed longer to fully open than the few seconds the drop from the first platform would allow, and he also presented other technical objections to which Reichelt could not provide a satisfactory response. Reichelt finally replied that, "You are going to see how my 72 kilos and my parachute will give your arguments the most decisive of denials." Dear God. Weighing himself the night before.
Oh, the night before?
I guess so, yeah. Like, he's 155 pounds or something. Like, it's 160 pounds, so.
He did it with the suit on, though?
I hope not.
With and without?
With and without, yeah. And a poo between as well. So, yeah, it's not
So
good.
he's doing this from the first platform.
First platform, 180 feet.
God, that's way taller than I thought it was.
Yeah, it fools you. If you've ever been to the Eiffel Tower, you look up and you think, oh, that's not that high. It's really fucking high, the first strut. And getting there is a mission, as you will find out now. Ropes had been suspended between the legs of the tower by the police at Reichelt's request to prevent the crowds from spilling onto the landing zone, which I actually think maybe that would have helped, or probably he would have taken people with him. And he spent some time discussing the arrangements with the marshals and ensuring that there was sufficient space for his landing before going to the stairs to climb the first platform. Kind of similar to how, like, public executions had to be stopped because they were just too popular. That's basically what we've got here, is that people are like, oh my God, he's not really going to fucking jump, is he? I'm hanging around for this. Oh my God. According to Le Petit Parisien, Reichelt's initial attempt to ascend to the first stage of the tower was blocked by a guard named Gassion, who had witnessed previous unsuccessful dummy drops and feared that Reichelt's attempt would end in disaster. I don't believe in God. We've mentioned this in a previous one, but he's getting every sign at this point. Even a guard who has no scientific background is like, listen, mate, I've seen it not work with dummies, and you are fatter than a dummy. Do not do this, you know?
Right. Like, why did he still let him go, though?
Yeah, it's because this guy is so convinced. And
just arrest him.
Know. Yeah, knock him out. You know, like, a concussion will do. But he was not to be deterred. Reichelt, who was visibly shaken by his argument with the guard, was allowed to mount the tower with his 2 friends and a cinematographer. Another was stationed near the foot of the tower to record the jump from below, and that's the footage you can view on YouTube, and it is disturbing. As Reichelt climbed the... Go on, what were you going to say?
I said, eek, and I'm going to go watch it too, and I said,
it's dark, but you'll have seen worse on the internet. I trust it.
Yeah.
As Reichelt climbed the stairs, he paused, turned back to the crowd because he hadn't showed off to them enough at this point, raised his hands and wished them a cheery "See you soon." Nah.
Oh.
His friends continued to try to talk him out of the jump while he's walking up to the first floor. He was completely undeterred. At 8:22 a.m., so we're almost an hour and a half later, observed by a crowd of about 30 journalists and curious onlookers, Reichelt readied himself facing towards the Seine on a stool placed on a restaurant table next to the interior guardrail of the tower's first deck. A little more than 57 meters or 187 feet above the ground. No. After adjusting his apparatus with the assistance of his friends and checking the wind direction by throwing a piece of paper from a small book, this science. Listen.
Yeah. He's that tells you everything you need to know.
Throw a fucking hanky out there. Why not? We're beyond science at this point.
Totally gonna work. Look at that paper go.
Look at that. Look, I'm chucking pages of Moby Dick out there. It's fine. He placed one foot on the guardrail, hesitated for about 40 seconds. That must have felt like a fucking lifetime, those 40 seconds, where he's like, am I an idiot? I'm going to die, aren't I? No, I'll be fine. Then leapt outwards. According to Le Figaro, he was calm. He was calm and smiling before he jumped. His parachute, which had seemed to be only half open, folded around him almost immediately, and he fell for a few seconds before striking the frozen soil at the foot of the tower. He basically became a BDSM lawn dart, which not good. Le Petit Parisien reported that Reichelt's right leg and arm were crushed. His skull and spine were broken, and that he was bleeding from the mouth, nose, and ears. So basically his head had exploded. Yeah, gross. They also noted that his eyes were wide open and dilated, meaning he realized just how fucked he was on the way down.
Yeah.
So, yeah. He was already dead by the time onlookers rushed to his body, but he was taken to the Neckler Hospital, where he was officially pronounced dead, and then onto a police station in Rue Amélie before being returned to his home in Rue Galland. Edouard Launay, writing in the summer supplement of Libération in 2009, mentioned that an autopsy concluded that Reichelt had had a heart attack on the way down and died before he hit the ground. I don't believe that. I believe that he was alive all the way down, or at least long enough to shit his pants, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just the story they tell you to make you feel better about that,
Like he felt all of that shit and then probably lived for about 3 seconds after he hit the ground. He's like, my God, what the fuck was I thinking? Gone.
Yeah. Well, what is that joke that they say? It's not the fall that kills you, it's that sudden stop at the end.
Yeah, it is. And in his case, it was a cold sudden stop as well. And he couldn't see because he was wrapped in silk and bondage gear. So he was unawares.
At least he was all wrapped up.
And at least it was soft on his cheeks, the silk, that would have been quite gentle.
Yeah, man.
The next day's, it's dark, but it gets weirder and more sad. He doesn't come back and try it again. This isn't like a zombie jump or anything like that. Isn't it cool. Better to be unaware, Pete? I think I agree with you. I think it might be better to be unaware, or to I just had a minor cardiac event this week. I think maybe a minor cardiac event, and then you stop feeling for a while. Yeah, that would have been better, to be honest with you. The next day's newspapers were full of the story of Reichelt's tragic experiment, complete with photographs, and at least 4 newspapers, Le Petit Parisien, Le Matin, Le Croix, and La Humanité, showed images of the fatal jump. First of all, I'm not sure how tragic this is or how much of an experiment it was, because they called it a tragic experiment. It barely passes as anything other than a publicity stunt, really. And I don't know how tragic it can be with the amount of warning he was given.
Maybe they meant it was tragic that they called it an accident.
Maybe.
I mean, tragic that they called it an experiment.
Yeah, tragic. There's no This is just some guy jumping off the Eiffel Tower at this point. Film of the attempt, including footage of Reichelt's body being removed and the onlookers measuring the depth of the crater he left behind.
Oh, yeah. That's sick.
15 centimeters or 6 inches.
Oh my God.
That's a deep crater.
Dude.
Ladies, the men will tell you it's 6 inches. But it's actually about 15 centimeters. Was distributed by news organizations. Initial reports speculated on Reichelt's state of mind. None assumed he'd been suicidal, but many called him reckless or foolish. I mean, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. A journalist in Lagauli, suggested that only half the term mad genius applied to Reichelt, although the same report included an interview with one of his friends who claimed that the tailor had felt pressured into giving a dramatic demonstration to attract sponsors without whom he would not expect to make a profit before any patent expired. Don't do it then. Just go back to dressmaking.
Yeah.
Stop, man.
Good. Yeah, like... You could have still done dramatic stuff with the mannequin, like put it in one of your dresses.
That is a great publicity stunt right there, Derek. Honestly, chuck one of the mannequins out from like a 6-story window in one of your dresses and maybe attach a parachute you've been working on at the same time. See if it works. If it doesn't work, people still see the marveling of your tailoring from 2 different aspects. Really great story right there. Would live for a few years, you'd make a bunch of money and retire. You wouldn't be talked about 125 years later because you're some fucking idiot that's deluded yourself into jumping off a giant building. Like,
yeah, I just don't understand. Like the whole concept of scale tests, just fucking.
And like we're talking like before controlled lab environments. Like there is no. Think about the safety precautions, think about this, what's an alternative that we can use to this. It's just, I'm going to fucking do it, and that's science, because I say it is. Like, no.
I feel like that's coming back, though.
Yeah, it really is. Also, like, I'm not in favor of harming animals or anything, but, like, maybe try it with a pig or something, you know, or a sheep. Or
better
something.
Than jumping off the damn Eiffel Tower yourself.
I mean, you know, that's a striking enough image in itself. It's probably an album cover that Led Zeppelin would have used if it had worked. But, like, fucking do that instead, mate. And then next time do it. Or, like, dummy, then pig, then human. Instead of doing it the reverse way. Anyway, Reichelt death was the first to result from a parachuting accident since this has happened before. Charles Leroux died giving a demonstration in Tallinn in 1889. Here comes the saddest part of this whole fucking stupid-ass story. On the 2nd of February 2012, 2 days prior to Reichelt's fatal jump, an American steeplejack called Frederick R. Law had successfully parachuted from the viewing platform of the Torch of the Statue of Liberty, 223 feet or 68 meters above sea level, and 151 feet, 46 meters from the base of the statue, seemingly on a whim. So 2 days before this guy killed himself attempting to create a parachute that would work at low altitudes, it had already been created.
Whoops.
Oh,
I like that the other dude tested it over like water. So
yeah, well, yeah,
kinda.
Exactly. He's like, if it's going wrong, maybe I can like aim for the water or whatever. But also, like, he's doing this on a whim. He's like, I know it'll work. I'll do it. That's very like 1912 America, right there. Like, I know it'll work. Everything's going great for our country at the moment. Fuck it, and it works. And it just like that's the American luck at the turn of the 20th century. Like, we know it'll work. We have faith in it, and it works. And now we're going to make a shitload of money off it. So
I'm just willing to bet that guy did like scale tests and shit beforehand. He's like, I'm gonna try it with a rock and a potato and like, and then I'm gonna
egg,
scale it up with like, and then I'm gonna try it with this safe and
yeah. Yeah. But actually, he's like, nah, I'm doing it on a whim. But actually, he's been testing it for 3 years or whatever.
Hell yeah.
Like, yeah, exactly.
That's the only way you do shit on a whim.
Exactly. On the 6th of February, Lacroix added a footnote to the report on Reichelt's death. Another parachuting experiment was to take place on either the 18th or the 25th of February at Jussy-sur-Orge, in which the aviator Camille Guillaume planned to leap from the Blériot monoplane at a height of 300 meters or 980 feet to test a parachute design. The plane would be allowed to crash. He's just like, fuck the plane. Just it'll land where it lands.
Wow.
I know.
Okay. Do it over a city.
I know, yeah. Just like, yeah, let's do it over Paris. I mean, it could do with demolition some parts. After Reichelt's death, authorities became wary of granting permission for any further parachute experiments using the Eiffel Tower. Yeah, no shit. Like, is anyone surprised by that? My God. Though they continued to grant permissions for parachute dummy drops, some hopeful inventors, such as a man named Dan Blanc, who wished to try his helicopter parachute, that sounds even worse.
Oh my God, I just pictured like Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, it is. Inspector Gadget
like...
from the second. Yeah, exactly. But this guy wanted to do it from the second platform. But he was refused permission to conduct tests, and even applications for aviation experiments not involving the tower came under renewed scrutiny because they're like, listen, this fucking guy, like, we're not having another one of those. I don't care if there's nobody in the plane. You're still not doing it. So.
Yeah, stop jumping off of shit. Stop jumping out of shit.
I feel
stay on the ground.
I feel like the Parisian authorities became like that parent. Like after their kid jumps off the bed and breaks their leg, they're like, listen, you are not jumping from anything for a few fucking years. And then like you'll be out in the park and they're like, no. Coming back down. More recently, the tower has become the scene of a number of illicit base jumps. I mean, this doesn't surprise me at all, especially like we now have good parachutes. That shit works now.
Got squirrel suits now.
Exactly. Like you could fucking fly over Paris these days. I could do it and survive. A Norwegian man died in 2005 after losing his canopy while attempting a promotional jump for a clothing firm. The first parachute death at the tower since Reichelt's, almost like 100 years. That's however, a sanctioned stunt jump for the 1985 James Bond film A View to a Kill was successful, and that's actually I think it's the Timothy. Is it the last Roger Moore one, or is it the first Timothy Dalton one? Anyway, it's Grace Jones' character, and actually she's wearing an outfit that's not dissimilar to what this guy was wearing. So that's kind of cool. I remember it. It's really cool. There's a whole like chase sequence down the Eiffel Tower, and like people get shot at, and then someone jumps off the Eiffel Tower, and this is a really cool Bond sequence. So,
you think they made it look like it sort of on purpose a little bit? Like a
yes, like,
hey, remember that guy that jumped off the bat?
Flapping his arms around? No, ironically, I think Grace Jones is the only person I would like. Yeah, you know, this 6'2" supermodel. Yeah, like they'll be fine because like she's weirdly graceful, Grace Jones. So like she would be absolutely fine. Reichelt came momentarily to prominence again in the 1940s in the United States when his likeness was claimed as the model for one of the figures that were strangely un-American in expression and garb in the WPA-funded mural at Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn, New York, which is weird, but we're in the middle of the Red Scare, so
okay.
You know, that shit's happening. In an incident reminiscent of the 1933 controversy over Diego Rivera's Man at the Crossroads mural at Rockefeller Center, a furore erupted over an image depicting two minor leftist aviators supposedly flanking a central portrait of Joseph Stalin. Although it's 1933, like, the Allies at this point? I guess not quite, because we're not in the war yet, but, like, probably not a popular guy. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he was. Was he popular with anybody really?
No, No.
Like,
It's kind
But
of a dick.
he was useful for a
Well,
period in time because
yeah.
he was willing, like, I'll just throw a million men, most of them unarmed, at the Germans, and we'll win that way. Okay, Joe, you psychopath. The WPA already had an unwanted reputation as being sympathetic to the left, and despite the artist August Henkel's glib explanation of the accidental inclusion of a Soviet red star and his claim that the image identified as Stalin was actually Reichelt, the murals were taken down and 3 of the 4 panels burned. Jesus. It's a bit of an extreme reaction. But also, like, it's a weird thing to say, oh no, it's not Joseph Stalin, it's actually this fucking idiot that jumped off the Eiffel Tower and killed himself. Like, why is that a better explanation? Why are you doing a mural of that guy? How is that a good inclusion? These are famous aviators. This guy threw himself off a building. Like,
it's all I could think of to cover for Stalin.
I mean,
he had a mustache and he looked a bit like Stalin, so he'll do. The story of Reichelt's misadventure was also the subject of a 1993 French short film, La Tailor Autrichienne, written and directed by Pablo Lopez Paredes and starring Bruce Myers. Well, that sounds familiar.
I'm
Anyway.
thinking Mike Myers.
Yeah, me too. But
that would have been called Le Splat.
It's fine. Yeah, exactly. That would have been a perfect name. Also, like, we can't find any French actors stupid enough to throw themselves off the Eiffel Tower, so we'll get an American. Although there were no viable parachuting solutions for use in aeroplanes when Reichelt began developing his suit, a patent for a package parachute, there it is again, had been applied by Russian inventor Gleb Kotelnikov at virtually the same time as the jump. In 1912, a design that was later employed in the First World War and didn't fail. Like, nobody's parachute folded in on itself and turned him into a giant shit-covered lawn dart, you know? So that's the story of Franz Reichelt.
He 2 at the same time that worked.
And if he just read a newspaper, because this guy jumping from the Statue of Liberty, yeah, that made the French newspapers, because obviously, like, the French created the Statue of Liberty, so it became news in France.
Maybe that's why he was like, well, if that fucking guy's worked,
mine will surely work.
Same thing. His was totally made of rubber and silk, right?
Yeah, and all sorts of weird shit. Yeah, I don't know why I chose this one. I feel like it's kind of a perfect example of, and I'm not calling him an idiot because this guy was actually really successful. I mean, he's kind of stupid, but like in his, I think the problem is his ambition and probably ego outweighed his skills. So he'd become a successful dressmaker, made a lot of money, had a really good life, but it wasn't enough. He had that drive in him to try something different and to be this, like, I want to be a big famous inventor and I want to be the guy that invented the parachute. And he couldn't do it. He was a good dressmaker, but he didn't understand engineering. And that's a very different thing. And like science and aerodynamic forces and breaking the wind, pun intended, you know, like he didn't understand that. He was just a very good dressmaker. And while that's an element of the skill that you need to design, you know, safety clothing, it's not, it's like maybe a component that's maybe 20% of the final thing, you know, like nowhere near enough.
Yeah, it's not at all. And okay, when was Darwin? When did the Darwin Awards start?
The Darwin Awards. I think that's like, I feel like that's very recent, like turn of the 21st century. But this guy, it's like prime Darwin Award candidate. Like
so many opportunities, so many signs. Like I have to score him high, no matter how awesome he was and good. And like, I feel bad scoring high.
Yeah, but like,
dude,
you can't ignore it. Like, this is Kanye West levels of delusion.
Yeah,
you know?
well, like he didn't have not any successful experiments.
No, Not a single one worked. So why was he so sure that extra height equals more success instead of extra height equals twice as much failure? You know,
Extra height equals let's try another experiment at extra height, for God's sakes. Come on, man.
and like just and the idea, and like I get he was a showman and he was trying to get attention and he's trying to get this 10,000 franc life-changing prize, but like throw one fucking dummy, just one, just to check the wind so you don't get blown back onto the fucking structure and have your skull cracked by the Eiffel Tower. You know, it's a strong breeze, you get blown straight back into a pillar, for Christ's sake.
Like,
So
well, wasn't there like a bridge or something? Like, he couldn't have done any? Was he out of mannequins? Is that what it was? Like,
it
I
must
really
have.
need those 10,000 francs to buy some more mannequins for these tests.
That's it. He's like holding himself over. But no, oh my god. I'm kind of interested to know your score because I kind of wanted to cover him, but I didn't. Like, I wanted something a bit positive, but actually this is like a really good lesson in like know your limits.
Yeah, know your limits. Like, have a friend that tells you, dude, come on, man.
I think he had two and he ignored them.
Oh, have a friend that will knock you out when you're going to do something that's going to kill yourself.
Yes, please have a friend who's kind enough to give you a concussion instead of letting you kill yourself. You will recover from the concussion.
Yeah. So this is probably going to be way higher than it needs to be, but just for the sheer amount of everything that he ignored, and the wind, the cold, the friends, the lawmen, the pile of dead mannequins. He's getting a 90.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's totally justified because he's literally only got himself to blame for this. I understand it's a pioneering time. People are taking risks and some of them are getting really famous off it. The Wright brothers famously took a huge risk and now they are etched into history. And, you know, Edison, bunch of risks and theft. But like, you know, he's obviously written into history for a different reason. But then again, I feel like a successful risk comes with a lot of planning, and I don't think he did any. From the research I could find, he wasn't like looking at like he wasn't doing calculations, he wasn't doing air velocity tests or anything like that. It was just chucking dummies out of windows, and that's not a test.
Yeah, the risk is one thing, but in order to do it, you've got to have some sort of calculated risk.
I know, like I know, it's kind of a weird example. I know that in a certain situation, I always plan, like if I have to make a massive purchase or if we have to do something like quite major, I always have like plan B, C, D, E, and E. Like if something goes wrong here, we can do this, or I can buy this instead, or we can fix it this way. There's always like another plan I had. This guy's only plan was that it was going to work. He didn't think about the negative consequences of his actions. He just did it.
Where were those firemen with that ring and the fabric just running around trying to catch him? Where were they?
Yeah, exactly. Like, why? Yeah, I guess it was so impromptu that they didn't have time to get there. And also, like, it's
still
Paris.
looking for the ring.
Yeah, it's Paris and rush hour. Like, there's so many like fucking cheese wagons in your way. Like, there's a fucking guy climbing the Eiffel Tower. But like, yeah, I think 90 is fair because this is one of the purest forms of stupidity we've ever covered, for sure.
Yeah.
There's no like malice in there. Like, he's not hurting people. He's not doing it to get a rush. He's doing it really for publicity and money. But actually, it's just pure, perfect stupidity in human form. And I guess the lesson, as Derek has mentioned in here, is listen to the people that are trying to pull you back. Like, I understand there are plenty of examples of people following through on risks and not listening to, you know, oh, don't do this. You'll never be a success if you do this. And then they end up becoming a success. And good for them. We applaud the positivity and all of that. But, you know, 99 times out of 100, there is significant failure when people tell you, listen, this is going to end in disaster. Don't do this. It usually ends in disaster. So have a bit of a think before you throw yourself off a giant fucking tourist trap. You
Yeah.
know, oh god,
Mm-hmm.
could you imagine? I don't know. So that's
Does that
go
video
on.
have sound?
No,
Thank
newsreels didn't
God.
have that. Yeah, I think this is super early. Actually, really interesting. Like your super early days of cinema, they didn't have sound because the sound equipment was like so noisy that they basically had to dub that shit in afterwards. So that's why silent movies and then like early audio stuff, like the sound booth had to be in like a separate room and it was hot as fuck in there. And yeah, so you had to dub stuff in afterwards.
I might Foley artist this and make us go viral on TikTok later.
Woo, woo. Just line up and down, yeah. Wee, plonk, you know, like oh god. So yeah,
Just
there's
before-
no
Back up.
yeah, just like a one of those. Ironically, those videos are called parachutes.
Oh gosh.
Going, yeah. The footage is disturbing because it literally, like, if you can imagine like a clumsy human being falling off something, it just looks like that, and then he hits the ground, and you're like, shit. So it's not the grimmest thing you'll have ever seen. You'll have seen worse things on like live television, like footage of war and stuff. Like it's no worse than like that aerial footage of a helicopter taking out a bunch of people in a war or whatever. It's nowhere. It's not as gruesome as that. Journalists accidentally, you know, friendly fire. So Franz Karl Reichelt, the tailor who thought he was Batman and threw himself off the Eiffel Tower, only to leave a 6-inch deep crater in the fucking ground.
Take that, Saltburn.
Yeah. I wonder if there's like a really uneven pavement tribute to him now, where there's just like a slight dip.
I would have immediately just put concrete in it and been like, this is a monument now.
Yeah, like charge people. Like you can reenact like the oh, that got so dark. You can reenact the finishing position, man. Yeah, like there are so many things in Paris that you can pay to get into and queue hours to get into, but I would not want to be. Hey, this is where Franz Reichelt threw himself and landed. Like, oh no, that's too much. But it's probably a possibility.
There's probably a ghost tour there. People,
yeah, for sure. There'll be a walking tour. Well, they'll be like, oh, that spot you're stepping in, yeah, that's why that guy landed. And, oh, Jesus, like stepping back, like, oh, no way. So, yeah, Franz Reichelt, one of our highest scores in a while, actually, a 90. And then we had legendary skater. What was your guy's name again? I always forget.
Christian Hosoi.
Christian Hosoi with a 15, actually, because he's got one of the best redemption arcs we've had in a very long time. I was struggling between Franz Reichelt and a music mogul who is kind of frustrating and sad and a bit annoying, more than like, we're not talking like disturbing like some people in the music world are. We're not talking that level, but I may cover that person next time. You will. They've actually had it as much as Franz Reichelt had a big influence on fashion. The person I will cover next time will have had a huge influence on fashion purely by accident. Yeah, massive. Their influence on fashion is almost as big as their impact on the music scene, and their impact on the music scene is colossal. So I'm just going to throw that one out there right now. The next episode, he's from the UK. That's all I'm going to say. Huge influence on fashion, huge influence on music, and a terrible, terrible person. So yeah, we're gonna throw that one out there. If you know your music moguls from the UK, and those clues, you should be able to piece it together. But I'll probably tell Derek off air. So that's been our show this week. I had kind of a lot of fun like researching this, because you know what's going to happen. Like the second you start reading, like when I told you page 2, Reichelt began to develop a parachute suit, you were like, oh no. Like you knew where this was going. This wasn't going to be one of those, oh, and he successfully landed and everyone thought he was amazing. No, this guy's going to die. You know, so you know where that's going. But I had a lot of fun going over it because it's one of those like moments in human history that you can't quite believe really happened, but boy, did it really happen.
Yeah, and it was long enough ago that I can laugh really hard about it.
Yeah, I feel like it's at a time when people were doing stupid shit as part of like kind of advancing human civilization and stuff. So
Yeah, well, I feel like if that was my great grandfather, I would be laughing the hardest about it because I'd be like, that dumbass.
you know, my great granddad threw himself off the Eiffel Tower and he died. It's like, yeah, no, I can totally get that. Whereas like people can be like, oh, you know, my relative, my ancestors, this guy was like a farmer, and and he got kicked in the head by a cow, and that was like the highlight of his life and shit. Like, this is a really interesting story, and I bet the Reichelt family have probably done okay from this. I would imagine that they'll have written books or like licensed this, because why wouldn't you? Although like he didn't have any kids, so I guess his sister or whatever. But you know, like there's enough there. I hope they found peace by making a little bit of money off it. It's an interesting story. So yeah, I would watch this dark episode of like a TV show or maybe a short film. Like, this could be an interesting film. Not as fun as yours or as nice as yours, but definitely like a Coen Brothers type thing where like, you know, the shit is gonna go dark. So
yeah, if you twist it right.
Yeah. So Joel and Ethan, if you're out there listening to our podcast, we are happy to sell you the rights to Franz Reichelt, even though we don't own anything. We just highlighting the story. But like, I think this could be a dark comedy classic, actually. But you know where it's going. Anyway, so that's our show this week. If you would like to help us out by putting us in a position to be financially secure and making this our full-time gig, so we can go weekly. I would love to go weekly with this.
Yes.
Go to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/history's greatest idiots, signing up for one of our tiers, getting one of the free gifts, but also access to the 40 posts we've got, where we've got all of our, well, a lot of our scripts, some of the videos that we've created for the episodes, behind the scenes pictures, a bunch of never released episodes that are Patreon exclusives, interaction with us. You get your name called out on the podcast every time when I remember it properly. All of that. Go and sign up and you'll be able to have closer contact with us. And also follow us on Instagram at History's Greatest Idiots and Twitter /X at Greatest Idiots. And yeah, we will be back very soon with that person I just teased. And Derek, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, everybody.
See you all very soon. Take care now. Bye.